Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast you are listening to currently is presented by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. If us three can do it, so can you. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and it's for free, which for every single person in the world helps extramentally, which you can use right from your phone or computer for conveniency. They also have creation tools, which allows you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great, while also giving you options to incorporate other parts to your podcast to make it as creative as possible. They will even distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard everywhere, just like everyone else on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, so it is a great way to start. But for this to happen, you have to go to download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. If you want to be like us, or like people who actually make money on this, we recommend you do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strokes and Jokes. We're here for episode 4. We have taken a long break after moving into college and getting our golf season started. We have a lot to talk about today. The PGA driver testing, that is new, and it's happening right now.
So we just moved into college about 2 weeks ago. Just been getting into our season, a lot of qualifying, a lot of golf. I guess our question and our topic to start off with is, how much is too much golf? Now, my opinion is, I think 36 holes in one day is a lot of golf. I think that no one should have to endure that in their entire life. It's pretty dreadful, especially if you're walking.
Well, some background information. We've played one walking college tournament, 36 holes in one day. We have one tomorrow at a difficult course, and we have another one this fall.
I just think it's a lot of golf to take in. And towards the end, once you get to the second 18, you're just trying to get through it. Like, you go into the day looking at every 9 holes is 25% of your round. And that's just a lot of golf. And, like, even 27 is, like, that's, like, should be the max. That's just what I think. What about you, Coda?
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm going to kind of quote something that Brooks Koepka said in an interview with, I believe, Barstool Sports. He said that, after 12, 13, 14 holes, he just wants to give up and stop playing the game. He's like, it's just not fun anymore. He said after 14 holes, he just gets tired of playing. And then we have these college tournaments that are 36 holes in one day. And it's just way too much golf. It's tiring. Your feet are hurting. You just don't. Especially if you're not playing good. If you're not playing good, you got to play a whole nother 18 walking. That's just absolutely terrible, and that's just not something that anybody should have to endure. And especially some of these tournaments we've had this year. We on a Friday we did 36, and then we did back-to-back 18 holes. Saturday, Sunday, and that's 72 holes in a 3-day span. Walking, playing courses that you're not quite familiar with, and whether the weather permits. I think the second day of our second 18 on that Sunday, it was raining. It was a little chilly, windy. You got to take into consideration. Last year we played Red Hawk, 36 holes in Findlay, Ohio. It was 35, 40 degrees out, pouring down rain. You got to think walking 36, especially a course like Red Hawk, which
40 mile per hour.
Yeah, 40 mile an hour. 40 mile an hour winds. If it's that cold out, walking 36 on a long, tough course, it's extremely grueling, and it's definitely not something anybody wants to endure.
What do you think, Julian?
It's there's a couple things you can go at it. From a walking standpoint, 36 is a pain.
Facts.
It really is. Riding in a cart, though, I think the one thing with doing 36, a couple years ago on spring break, we did play 36 in one day. But it was a course that had multiple courses on it. Too. So the one thing I say is, like, it was cool. We got to see 2 different courses while playing 36. But 36 really is a lot. It is a lot of golf. I think 27, which we said already, is actually, like, a fairly good number because, sometimes after 18, you're like, man, I could go for a little bit more. And then usually when you get on the back 9 of your second 18 for a 36-hole, day, you're like, all right, I want to stop. So it's a little bit of give and take on, especially if you're playing well, sometimes you just never want to leave the course. And if you're playing bad, you want to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something I've never even heard of until getting to college. And it seems like it's becoming more and more popular because, I look at a lot of other school schedules, and they have the same thing. Like, they have 2 or 3 36-hole rounds in a season.
And, I think why it's so popular in college is just the efficiency of it. And it goes for the budget of the schools. Like, you don't have to spend an extra night in a hotel. That saves money. And maybe the course will give you a deal if you only play one day, because then they can stack 2 times the next day. But, it's just too much. Like, when we played that 36 on that Friday, my ass was crawling to the car. It was a rough time.
Yeah, I completely agree with the whole stacking of the tee times on the next day thing. You got to think some of these golf courses, they've got back-to-back 18-holers, and they're definitely cutting some of these teams a deal with these college teams, come and play this tournament, which really to the golf course means absolutely nothing except for the fact that they're going to lose money on tee times they could have throughout the day. So if you do this 36-hole, in one day, so 7, 8, 8-hour thing, you can still get a little bit of tee times maybe at the end of the day or possibly early in the morning, and then the next day where you would be having a normal another 18 round in college, you don't have anything. You just played 36 that first day, so you can go ahead and get your tee times in. It could possibly get the golf course some money out there.
Yeah, 36 in one day. It's a win for the courses because they're only losing one day on their calendar for making money, and it's a win for the administration of the colleges because they're not spending as much money for these tournaments. But the real losers are the golfers themselves. It's a damn struggle.
And then you're watching, coach or parents and stuff when they're in their carts and they're just driving around, and you're like, man, you should just throw me that cart and you guys can walk instead.
Yeah.
That's how I always feel.
And when we played 36 the last week, we had 2 coaches out there, and I didn't see the one at all except for when he picked up my scorecard after the first 18. And the other one who had the water, I only saw maybe 2 or 3 times the entire day, and it's 80 degrees out, walking 36, and I can't get any water.
Dude, parched out here.
For real.
I saw the dude twice. In a 36-hole round, I was starting to get pissed.
I was starting to
there's a
my
pond.
bottle in the pond and drink some water.
Yeah, you should have just grabbed your water bottle and just bent over and just drank some of that gross pond water.
I was squeezing my sweat out of my pores and putting in my water
I
bottle.
don't think you had to squeeze the sweat out. It was probably dripping so hard. Had like a bucket underneath you.
So here's a good question. What do you guys think in the future? Should they allow us to have carts? For future golfers, just to make things, that'd be so efficient. 36 holes in one day.
It is efficient.
It's gonna cost a lot more money though.
It'll cost more money to the courses and for the administration of the schools.
The biggest thing is if you're going, college and pro, if until pro golfers can use carts 24/7, excluding John Daly,
which will never happen.
Which won't happen, and that's the thing is
they can't even
never. That's a long shot.
They can't even get allow these guys to wear shorts on tournament stays, let alone drive a goddamn car around.
Don't even get me started on the shorts thing. Unless your name's Spencer Daniels, I think everyone in the country wants to wear shorts.
Pants are superior.
Pants is just such a crispy professional look. Yeah. I don't care how I'm feeling. If there's a chance I can wear pants and I'm looking pretty badass, I'm going to wear pants.
I like the look of pants, but when it's 90 plus, 100 plus degrees out,
you're just not wearing pants.
If you're wearing pants when it's 100 degrees out, you're just asking for swamp ass. It's just
it'll be 70 out and I'm wearing shorts and I still got swamp ass. What you mean?
It could be 40.
You sweat when you lay in bed. Yeah. You never don't have swamp ass. You probably go through 3 pairs of underwear in a week. A week wouldn't surprise me either.
Something else.
I think another topic we should talk about is the conforming driver test, or the CT, which is the characteristic time for drivers on the PGA Tour, and how they're testing that.
So characteristic time is when the club head meets the golf ball, and it's like the time. It's literally measured in microseconds between when the golf ball and the golf club head is touching. They measure that. Like, in my view, that to me is just so stupid, in my opinion.
It's astronomically ridiculous.
It's taking it way too far. I mean, microseconds of when the golf ball is touching your driver head. Everybody's using the same driver. Everybody that's sponsored by TaylorMade, sponsored by Callaway, sponsored by Titleist, they're all using the same driver.
And what's going to change throughout the year? I mean, the same driver, just different shafts. I mean, there's really no difference in the drivers, and I don't get the point of the testing. I guess the USGA just wants to do it to reign their dominance over.
No, that's not at all why they're doing it. I'm going to stop you right now and tell you exactly why they're doing this. Because if these driver heads get too hot, these balls are going to be going too far, and you can't just not every golf course can just extend their par fours and extend their par fives. It just doesn't work like that.
I think
these golf courses are built the way they're built, and if they, change, if they don't put these limitations on these clubs, you're going to have guys hitting 400-yard drives, and then a par five is going to be turned to a par four really damn quick, and that's just not how it's going to work.
Okay, well, my opinion is, if everybody's doing it, if you're good enough, if you're a pro, and everybody's hitting at 400 yards on a par five, let them do it. If everybody's birdieing, still going to come out the same result. The best golfer will make eagle, whatever.
Rather the winning score is 1 over or it's 22 under. The best golfer is going to win no matter what. And I think it's just more entertaining for the viewer if these golfers are hitting 400-yard drives and saucing a wedge in there to 2 inches.
But the other hand, though, is from a baseball view, all the way through college, you're allowed to use metal bats. As soon as you get to the pros, it's wood.
I think that's a great analogy.
It makes a huge difference, and they could do something like that. Professional using like a 1-layer ball or something like that to slow it down so they're not hitting the ball a million yards.
But then you do that and you're going back in time and you're reversing technology. And in this day and age, we should be trying to advance technology and not trying to go back into the past just because someone's hitting it 75 yards farther.
I mean, baseball players, somebody can make a bat that has a spring in or something crazy that makes the ball go fucking mile.
I know, but you think about that. With golf, I mean, if you got these guys hitting 400-yard drives and they have 130 yards in it and they're hitting, a 48, 50-degree wedge, that's just going to speed everything up. Scores are going to get lower. The game's going to go by faster. And then that's less money that they're making on TV because the longer these things go, the more money they make on TV. So it's less money they're making. And then the quicker these golf rounds go, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I'm not going to go to a golf round and watch a guy play 18 holes in 2 hours. You're going to drive for me, I live in Mansfield. I'm going to drive all the way to Firestone, which is an hour and 15 minutes, just to watch somebody play a round of golf for 2.5 hours, and normally it'd be about 3.5, 4 hours. I mean, just everything's going to get sped up, and you got to think more of the marketing standpoint of it.
I mean, just because someone's hitting the ball 2 yards farther doesn't mean the round's going to get cut in half.
It is not going to be a 2-yard difference.
Okay,
how that works.
Either way, if someone hits a 300 and someone hits a 400, they're still going to be taking time on the shots. And I would argue that they would take more time on the shots if they have a wedge in their hand because they're trying to put it close rather than having a 7-iron in their hand, just hit it to the middle of the green, 2-putt, and get out of there.
It would be interesting to see the data. What's the difference? So I've had my driver for 2 years. My driver is 2 generations old. Does it really make it that much different? Somebody that has had a driver for 5 years versus a one that's right off the shelf.
Well, Coach Craig, he was the golf coach at Bluffton University. He's been using the same 913 driver. I mean, his driver are 7 years old, and he believes at this day that drivers will never lose their pop. He's saying how he still hits the ball just as far as he is now as he did then. So I don't think drivers really lose their pop. I mean, Spencer, I play with you, and there's multiple times you've been up by me or even farther. I don't think drivers lose their pop. I mean, eventually they have to give out because you can't use the equipment, especially how many rounds you play. I think I was talking to somebody and they said 700 swings is when a driver starts to lose a little bit of distance on it.
Well, I feel like the conforming argument is that the more you use it is the hotter the driver face is going to be, and then the club or the driver won't be conforming. I guess my question is, why would it only be the driver face that wouldn't be conforming, and why wouldn't why wouldn't the irons not conform, or the wedges?
Well,
I think
they do the wedges though with grooves, because you can't have certain grooves, so it's a little bit different.
That is different though, because the grooves, that's a different aspect than just how fast the ball is coming off the face of the club. That's just generating more spin with different types of grooves.
It's the same concept in all reality. Speed coming off the club face is more distance. Different grooves going to cause more spin. I mean, it's the same type of concept. It's just a different statistic.
I think we can back to what Spencer said with the baseball analogy. I mean, there's been definitely some rumors going around, such as from players like Justin Verlander, who just threw a no-hitter the other day, by the way, represent. But he's been saying how since the MLB owns Spalding, that they've been juicing the baseballs, and that's why the numbers of home runs have increased so dramatically in the past 2 years. Is like when we talked about reversing the technology of the golf ball, the MLB is increasing the technology of the golf ball so there's more action in the game and the balls go farther. And it's the same concept. And I guess I don't really understand what's the big deal, because I think just a non-conforming head to a conforming head, in my eyes, I just don't think how huge a difference that could be, especially when we're talking microseconds.
And it really makes it hard on the players, because they're getting it from, TaylorMade, Callaway, Titleist, wherever, and it should not be on the players.
Well,
I think this is the biggest thing is PGA Tour posted their the email or letter they sent to all the players, and it's almost like, why can't PGA go directly to Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, make sure and kind of leave the players out of it, because it's not the players who are making the clubs. So why are you putting this on the players?
But they are now, though.
Well, what Spencer and I were talking about is that in the letter that the PGA sent out was the tour is going to keep it confidential between the club manufacturers and the players themselves. And the whole reason that this rule is being brought on is because last year, I believe it was at the British Open, was that Xander Schauffele had his driver tested, and the USGA and the PGA, as well as the media, kind of came at him and put him in a bad spotlight, kind of putting the blame on him that his driver head wasn't conforming to whatever the rules were. And Xander Schauffele spoke out about that because it wasn't right that it was put out in the media. I think testing like that should be kept confidential, and that's why this rule is being changed and why they're changing the way the testing's is being going about. And I think that Xander Schauffele had 100% right in what he did and what he said, and it kind of forced the PGA's hand, and that's why they're changing the rule now. And I think Spencer has something to talk about with the rules that the PGA is going to use now, with like the green light or the green flag, the red flag, and the yellow flag, and what that means for the drivers.
So basically, as I read the report, basically what they are doing is at any time during a practice round before tournament play begins, a tour official can come up to you, take your driver away from you, and basically they will go and test it. After testing, a green marking means that you're good to go, it's perfect, you're fine. Yellow basically means that you're pushing the limit. You can play a couple rounds, but they look out and they'll be testing you soon based on what they think. And red means that your driver's a no-go. They write down your serial number, and basically they take that driver and discontinue it, and they give it back to the manufacturer, which really goes on about them keeping it confidential, as the only people they tell is the manufacturer and the player. That way basically they're covering their tracks, basically what they did to Xander. And going forward, I think it's just going to be more annoying and one of like just another worry as players on their equipment.
Now, Spencer, with that, so are you telling me that like what they're doing is they're taking these players' drivers, and the more they use them, the more chance it is it's just going to get taken away and just be too hot for the player to use?
I'm not sure about how it works with the club face exactly. Like a new driver obviously is going to be green. I don't know when the club face is the hottest, whether it's after like a brand new after 100 shots with it, or it's after a while playing with it. I don't know how that works. They haven't released like any information of like how it affects the driver.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something we should look into, because if you have guys like say Brooks Koepka or Rory, someone who's playing really good this year, or JT, someone who's having a really good year and they're really confident in the equipment they're using, I feel like that could almost like kill a vibe or kill their mojo and, bum out their season, because, the driver they've been using all year that they've been hitting really well is getting taken away from them. And I know, TaylorMade's good at completely identically, perfectly matching that same driver that's like, hey, here's a new one, don't worry about it, it's going to perform the same way. But I know, like, if a club face gets worn down a little bit and they like the way it might feel because they've been using it all year, or the shaft is just a little more work because they've been using it all year. If I'm a player and they're taking that club from me that I've been using, that I've been hitting well all year, it almost seems like they're just going to screw everything up and screw up the way I've been hitting my ball. And I don't think that's fair at all if that's the case. And it's definitely something we should look into with those new rules.
Well, I think that's also, it kind of hurts or hinders the mental psyche of the player. Like, hey, it's kind of like a luck thing, or like a good luck charm is like, I've been hitting this driver all year well, and then all of a sudden it gets tested and I got a red flag. Well, now I got to get a new driver, and then it kind of hurts your mental game where, like, can you trust this driver? You don't have your full trust in it, kind of like you did the last one, and it just hurts your mental mojo, I guess, and it stops you from fully trusting the club when you really should.
So, do you guys, I mean, it's like sort of like baseball with everything conforming to a certain degree. Like we said, you use wood bats in baseball. Do you think eventually, maybe not in Division III, but like D1 tournaments and stuff, do they do conforming stuff? Do they, is that something that we might see come into the college game, so then it's more fit for college players to do the same thing?
It's definitely possible, I think, at like very like high levels of Division I, but at the same time, the manufacturers aren't the ones giving the players the clubs, and it's their driver. So I would see a hard spot between telling a college kid, we're taking this driver because it doesn't conform to the rules and we're giving it back to the manufacturer, whether they can work something out with the manufacturer and say, hey, you have to replace their driver if it doesn't conform, or if they said something like that, I can see it happening, but at the same time, that's far-fetched.
No, absolutely. Makes sense.
I mean, I think what a better option would be, instead of just changing these rules, is like the NFL. Obviously, they don't really have a minor league system, but like now with the XFL coming in, their XFL is testing all these different rules kind of for like player safety. And I think the PGA Tour could kind of do that in a way, instead of with Division I athletes or golfers or like the high amateur ranks, is that they could go down to the Corn Ferry Tour or the PGA Tour, Canada or China or Latin America, and they can kind of impose these rules on the lower levels of the PGA Tour and see how they work, and if they work well. And then if they do work well, then they can impose it to the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Another thing, like informational-wise, is I'm kind of wondering is how often does this happen? How many players are there actually using like unconforming drivers, like basic drivers? And how, if you have 30 guys coming into a PGA event and all 30 of them, like their drivers aren't legal, how are they going to replace those on spot, especially with these foreign guys using Hanma and all these different brands? I know Next Level clubs are coming up. There's a lot of different club brands that are coming up, and they don't have the manufacturers. They don't have the van set aside on the PGA Tour event just has 20 drivers on deck to just pass out.
I mean, I think what could be a good idea or something the PGA Tour could implement is like maybe that they set certain dates or certain tournaments in the schedule where like, hey, if you use a tailor-made driver, then they do all the players that use a tailor-made driver on that week of the tournament, and then they don't have to worry about it the rest of the year and just set these tournaments or certain dates where like, so the TaylorMade goes one tournament and then the next it's Callaway and then Titleist and so on and so forth. And then once you dwindle all the manufacturers down, then they're good for the season, and then you just repeat the process season after season.
The one thing about that, though, is they're doing it randomly because you couldn't – I mean, it's like in high school, college, whatever. If you're getting tested for something, you know, and you know after you get tested, you're not going to get tested again for a year, then it's like then you stop everything you're doing that's wrong until after the test, and then it's boom, right back into it. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I get that. So then maybe not set dates, but
And, give me a non-conforming club, but it's like, you know, we're just looking, you know, a company like Titleist or TaylorMade would be like, all right, well, let's get the most out of this M6 driver for Rory to make sure that he is hitting his ball at the highest quality he can.
I mean, maybe instead of the certain dates that are set throughout the years, like you do a random, but you do all of one manufacturer at one time, so not only one single player is getting singled out. Because there's 152 players in every field. If only one player, like you're only finding a very small percentage of a field that may or may not be using a conforming driver. And if you just select one brand randomly at a tournament and test them all, then you're more likely to find the non-conforming drivers, and then you can go on and replace them. I think that's a better way to get the non-conforming heads out of the game, and just I think that's better. It'll work better for what the PGA Tour wants and what their vision is, I think, and it also helps the players. Like if I'm Xander Schauffele and I get tested, and it's not a non-conforming driver, then it's like, well, hey, I just got singled out, and why isn't Sergio Garcia, who has the same driver as me, not being tested as well?
I mean, the one thing they could do, I don't know how many get tested each week on their driver for for passing the regulations for it, but something that might make a little more sense is doing, you know, we'll take two people from Titleist, we'll take 2 from TaylorMade, 2 from Callaway, you know, however many from Honma, whatever, Ping, Mizuno, whatever you're looking at, and you go, okay, well, we'll take this, you know, this many this week, you know, or you could do a percentage based on the number of players in the field that are using that club. You know, if you're a TaylorMade guy and you have a TaylorMade driver and you have 50 guys and you take, you know, 2% of however many guys you have in the field, you know, something like that might make a little more sense too. So then it's not like, oh, wow, TaylorMade's getting tested this week, Titleist is getting tested this week. It's like, all right, everyone can be tested all at once.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually have a suggestion. So if I'm correct, someone correct me if I'm wrong. You know, the players that are playing in this tournaments, they have a specified locker room, correct?
Yes.
You know, place they can put their clubs, you know, maybe anything they need for the week, and like a locker. So why not have all these players? You know, I don't think a lot of these players, I don't know if they take the clubs home with them or what, but maybe during one of the practice rounds, you know, leave your clubs in the locker room overnight. They test everybody's clubs that night, and those are the set clubs you use for the week. You know, just if everyone's clubs in the locker room, have a couple guys go in there, do their test throughout the night, boom, call it a day, everyone gets tested, everyone's clean, send it off. It's just simple as that.
The thing is that's not the test. They can't just like walk up to your golf bag. They don't have a tool to test it. How they're testing it, I'm assuming, is having a robot swing the club and then measuring it in microseconds. It's literally how long the ball and the club head meet. I mean, and the thing is the USGA, if they're going to be that specific, why are they not specific on some other things other than that?
Well,
That's such a weird thing to just pick out.
I mean, I think it's funny that the USGA or the PGA can find a way to fix this type of problem in such a short period of time, but they can't figure out how to fix slow play in such a short. I mean, I think that should be an easy fix. I think they should just follow the rules of the USGA and just 50 seconds per shot, and if you don't, you get strokes.
I mean, the USGA requires you to take a drop from knee height. I mean, realistically, that's like a ballpark estimate. It's not, but at the same time, it's not that specific. They're going to be specific about stuff. There's a lot of stuff, that they can be even more specific about than that.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, changing golf clubs isn't going to make you a better golfer. It might help you here and there, but you're not just going to like go to bed one night being a 7 handicap, wake up, go to Dick's Sporting Goods, pick up a new driver, go out there and break 70. It's not going to happen. And these PGA pros, I mean, does that really matter? It just goes again, like what we think about it. It seems ridiculous for that. It's just another thing that they're adding to golf just to make it even worse than what it already is with how many rules and specifications and all this other stuff.
I totally agree. I guess that there's not really I don't think how much a big difference is that between a conforming and a non-conforming club. I don't think that a non-conforming club, because the ball is so quick off the face, is going to gain a player 50 yards or make those drives more accurate. And I think that all depends on the player and the workout regimen, or just how they swing the golf club.
And it's almost like just a comparison of how specific the USGA in golf is think about the NFL. That's like almost telling a punter that they all have to wear a specific cleat just because how long the football is on their foot when they punt it.
Yeah.
Saying that's changing yardage between how far they're punting the ball and stuff like that. The NFL, they're just smart enough to know that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, because every single person is going to swing the club at a different speed. So if someone chooses to swing the club head at 130 miles an hour, I imagine that person, the club or the ball, is going to be touching the club for a shorter amount of time than someone that swung at 100 miles per hour. Like, everybody's different. Everyone's going to swing the club a different way. So all those numbers are not going to be the same. There's no way that it's adding that much of a difference to where they're actually going to have a problem with someone hitting the ball 5 yards farther than the next person.
And if that guy is hitting the balls 5 yards further or something like that, that's his ability. Like, if he can outdrive you, good for him. That's a strong suit of his game. Like, Brooks Koepka, a strong suit of his game with Dustin Johnson. Not saying Dustin Johnson doesn't have another good part of his game, but a large part of his game is the fact that he can hit his driver 320, damn near average. And that gives him a huge leg up on everybody else in the field. But then again, you got guys that have a good wedge game and good iron game. They're sticking it to 5 feet every single time they hit a 7-iron, which is insane.
Yeah.
Whether Dustin Johnson can do that with a 7-iron, probably not. But that's just like saying that, Dustin Johnson's wearing a certain kind of cleat that's helping him line his ball up or something like that. It's just like, it's way too specific, and it's skill.
It's like the same thing as saying Phil Mickelson can't have a high-toed wedge and it makes him hit a flop shot higher or have better spin or be better at chipping. Like, you can't tell me that his clubs are illegal. It's just he's that good with his wedges.
Yeah, and you can't tell me Phil Mickelson is not an absolute god with his fucking wedge.
Yeah, and then you put a driver in his hand and he's spraying it left, and you just talk about hitting these high bombs because he knows that if he doesn't swing as hard as he can't keep up with the younger guys. But that doesn't mean his clubs are more legal than Brooks Koepka. No, you just don't hit the ball as far. But you might have a lot better wedge game. That's his strong suit.
Exactly. They're just getting way too specific with rules, in my opinion. Basically, that's our opinion on everything that the USGA has done this week on the whole driver in play system. We thank everybody for the follows on Twitter. Keep listening to the podcast. We're coming out with some good things. Thank you guys for listening. I'm your host, Spencer, with Carter, Coda, and Julian. Thanks for listening.